to our live stream on Tuesday, the 29th of June, 2021. I'm back to live streaming. I was off getting this office remodeled. It's not where we want. Still, you can hear a little bit of an echo, but we are back in our office working, and hopefully we'll be here for quite a while. And I'll set up some more sound dampeners and some pictures and so on and so forth. So today, first I want to tell you I'm Brian Foster. I talk about Spiritism, the third revelation brought to us by the Spirit of Truth and codified by Allan Kardec in the 1850s. The Spirit of Truth was promised to us by Jesus in the New Testament. I will give you more information. I'll give you a consoler, the Spirit of Truth. So the revelation really has told us many things. It's given us much more information from the New Testament. The New Testament with a lot of parables and coded words and kind of little fuzziness. The Spiritism brought to us by Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism, has given us a lot more definite information about the processes, the levels of heaven, what's in the lower zone, what's in purgatory, the fact that we're immortal spirits, that we're here on earth really to learn to become a better spirit, and that we go through multiple incarnations. Reincarnation is real, and so is karma. Karma determines what our life will be because of our karma, because of what we did in our previous lives. So let's get right into it. This is part 3 of the Kingdom of Hell in the book The Wanderer in Spirit Land by the Spirit Franchezzo. This is a great book. I have a link to it in the description. It's in PDF. And I'm going through what he said. This was, I think, published in the late 1800s. And I'm interpreting what he's going through with Spiritism. And believe me, it's a lot of parallels. Some things are concepts I kind of transform a little bit. So let us get into it. Let me show this. And we'll hide this. And I'll get the print up higher. Now we stopped. We've been on chapter 21 for quite a few weeks. This is part 3. This will be the third. And what is happened is Franchezzo's gone into this, he calls hell. It's really purgatory. The Spiritism calls it the dark abyss, and it's full of ignorant spirits that are tied to material goods or are tied in loops of hate and envy and revenge. It's where the law of affinity sends people to be with other people like them. Some of them don't even know they're in this purgatory. And then also some of them know they are, and they believe it's forever. That's part of the punishment of kind of telling them, but it's not. As soon as they change their attitude and personality and ask for help, it will be given. In fact, that is why Franchezzo is on this trek, this mission of his to go through and help. And he's actually found a friend. He says, and he goes, well, help me out of here. And he goes, well, you have to help too. And so he found these people in this mud encrusted lake. And so what he's done is he's tried to help some poor spirits. And he thought that the friend he brought with him said, no, I'm not going in there. But then he saw him actually help another person in this lake. And let me carry on. I'll kind of redo from the last paragraph I ended last week. This is what I'll read now. Even in the midst of my awful surroundings, I could not help feel a certain sense of amusement in looking at him, meaning his friend, trying to get this other guy out of the mud-encrusted lake. He made such frantic and exaggerated efforts to haul along the unlucky spirits, and was so shouting and going on that it was calculated to alarm anyone who was timid. And I did not wonder to hear the poor spirit almost imploring not to be so energetic, to take it a little slower, and to give him some time to follow. I went over to them, and the poor rescued one being now near the shore, I helped to get him out and to let him rest beside the other one. So these people are in this level, this dark abyss, what he calls hell. It's more of a purgatory. And the man who's helped him used to be a pirate, and really terrible, but he's getting himself out of that. This is why God is so wonderful, and Jesus, who is in control of all the heavens surrounding our earth, and he's in control of other planets too. But everyone has more chances. There's always a second, third, fourth nth chance. I mean, it goes on as long as they just want you to keep learning, and they're so proud of you when you rise, you become a better person. And there's, you know, your guardian angel a little bit sad when you know, you kind of fall back and make the wrong decisions, but there's always another time. That's why never worry about it in your life, in this life, that, oh, I missed this chance of a lifetime. No, no, no. You haven't missed anything. You'll always have another chance. Okay, I'll carry on. The pirate spirit seemed greatly delighted with his successful efforts and very proud of himself, and was quite ready to set off again. So I sent him after someone else whom we heard calling, and was attending to the other two when I again heard the most pitiful wailings not far from me. Though I could see no one at first, and a faint tiny speck of light, like a will-o'-the-wisp, glimmered in the darkness of that disgusting swamp, and by its light I saw someone moving about and calling for aid. So, not very willingly, I confess, I went into the mud again. When I reached the man, I found he had a woman with him who he was supporting and trying to encourage. And with considerable trouble, I got them both out and found the pirate spirit had also arrived with his rescued one. Truly a strange group we must have made on the shores of that slimy sea, which I learned afterward was the spiritual creation of all the disgusting thoughts, all the impure desires of the lives of men on earth, attracted and collected into this great swamp of foulness. Those spirits were thus wallowing in it, had reveled in such low abominations in their earth lives, and had continued to enjoy such pleasures after death through the mediumship of mortal men and women, till at last even the earth plane had become too high for them by reason of their own exceeding vileness, and they had been drawn down by the force of attraction into this horrible sink of corruption, to wander in it till the very disgust of themselves should work a cure. Now, this paragraph, if you really look at it, tells us everything we need about how we are manipulated to look towards the light. And I've read this in other books and other spiritist books, is that if a person goes down into a lower level, and then they're also still working, you know, as there are spirits around us right now, working with the thoughts of men and giving them bad advice and trying to feed them bad inspirations. And, you know, and then like poor people who are addicts, drug addicts, alcoholics, they'll tell them, no, don't stop. Let's keep drinking or keep taking that drug because they want to feel it too. So they do that. And so when, instead of trying to help other people there, or at least not be evil or be, you know, bad, I don't like to use the word evil, it's really more ignorant, then they will say, okay, well, you're on the face of the earth, you're on the lower levels, we'll put you down below even further because you're still being mean to people, you're still taking advantage of people, so now you go down. And then here, they finally went down so far, they were in this great swamp, right? This is how this works. This is why, you know, when people say, there's no such thing as hell. Well, there isn't anything such as eternal punishment, or eternal damnation. No, that's not true. You are just in there as long as you until you change your character and your beliefs and say, you know, being mean to other people, and now I'm in a place where everyone's kind of treats me like I treated them, is not such a great idea. And then you learn, you know, it's just like letting a kid make mistakes, right? You can't tell people you have to be good. They have to learn that that's what they want. And this is what the spirit world is. They don't want you to say, oh, Spiritism, I need to be a good person. No, they want you to understand in your own mind and build a firm foundation of faith so that you have this utter belief in the spirit world that there are spirits around you, you know, very high spirits and some lower spirits. Of course, when we become a planet of regeneration, the lower spirits will go on to other planets, which is, we're beginning that now. And to really, for you in your own heart, to rip out your primitive emotions and replace those with civilized love, charity, fraternity. So, I'll carry on. Those spirits who were thus wallowing in it had rebelled in such low abominations in their earth lives and had continued to enjoy such pleasure after death with the mediumship of mortal men. Okay, so I said that. So here they're, and of course they're going to be in this horrible sink of corruption to wander in it until the very disgust of themselves should work a cure. The genius of the spirit world. This is how it works. I'll carry on. One man I had rescued had been one of the celebrated wits of Charles II court. Well, he's been there for a long time. And after his death had long haunted the earth plane, sinking, however, lower and lower till he had sunk into the sea at last. The weeds of his pride and arrogance forming chains in which his feet were so entangled that he could not move till I released him. Another man had been a celebrated dramatist of the reign of the early Georges, while a man and women who belonged to the court of Louis XV had been drawn together to this place. Those rescued by the pirate were somewhat similar in their histories. So these people have been in there for hundreds of years. What a waste of time. This is where I tell people, study Spiritism. I'm not telling you to put on a hair shirt and divest yourself of all your assets. No, you just create a balance. You have to work, you have to feed your family, feed yourself, help other people, right? But you need to give some compartment, some little slice of your time. Read about Spiritism. If you don't care about Spiritism, just pick up a Bible. There's lots of Christian literature, Hindu, Buddhist, anything you want. But to learn to become a better person, because all the religions say is want you to become a better person. Learn that first. Spiritism will give you a lot more information. It will tell you really what's going on in heaven, what it's like, how that when you're there, you create with your mind, what happens when you pass over, how you're reincarnated. All that will give you much more detailed information. I'll carry on. I had been somewhat troubled at first as to how I was going to free myself from the mud of that horrible sea. But now, suddenly, I saw a clear, small fountain of pure water spring up near to us, as if by magic, and in its fresh stream we soon washed away all traces of the mud. I now advise those whom we had rescued to try what they could do to help others in this land of darkness, as a return for the help given to themselves. And having given them what advice and help I could, I started once more on my pilgrimage. The pirate, however, seemed so very unwilling to part from me that we two set forth together once more. I shall not attempt to describe all whom we sought to help in our wanderings. Were I to do so, this narrative would fill volumes and probably only weary my readers. So I shall pass over what seemed to me like weeks of earthly time, as nearly as I am able to reckon it, and will describe our arrival at a vast range of mountains whose bleak summits towered in the night sky overhead. We were both somewhat discouraged with the result of our efforts to help people. Here and there we found a few who were willing to listen and to be helped. But as a rule, our attempts had been met with scorn and derision, while not a few had even attacked us for interfering with them. And we even had some trouble to save ourselves from injury. This is all true. How many people, even on our earth life, don't want to hear anything. In fact, in Western culture now, you can't even, in business dealings, you can't even say God bless you or anything like that. They just, I don't want to hear that. At least it's their society, and of course, and then the workings of this kind of hopefully phase that will end soon of this cultural Marxism, which is the rejection of all spirituality and of the family. Hopefully this will pass, which I think it will. I think it's will come on us in a great revelation pretty fast. And I have videos on that. But this is where, we can't let our culture beat us down and say, now there's nothing, and when I die, I'm just dust. This is important. I've had things happen to me that cannot be explained by science. No way. Other people have had near-death experiences, visions, an aunt who told them what was going to happen in the future, which is, how can you explain that? There are things that happen that each one of us are going to have to look within ourselves, and don't worry about what science says or not. They don't even, a good scientist will tell you they don't know anything, right? They know kind of what they know, but there's a whole world out there they have no clue. And there are things they know that they cannot explain. In fact, you're actually seeing more of this from other scientists saying the whole way the world was set up and the universe was created, a lot of these variables and ratios are like, how can this happen so perfectly? Well, because it was all led by God, who created the spirit realm, and then from the spirit realm, the physical realm was created. Okay, let me carry on. Our last attempt to begin with a man and woman of the most repulsive appearance who were fighting at the door of a wretched hovel. The man was beating her so terribly I could not but interfere to stop him, whereupon they both set on me at once. The woman spirit doing her best to scratch my eyes out, and I was glad to have the pirate come to my assistance. For, truth to tell, the combined attack had made me lose my temper, and by doing so I put myself for the moment on their level, and so was deprived of the protection afforded me by my superior spiritual development. Now, this is a really eye-opening thing. So, a high spirit, a very high spirit, no. Franchezzo is a spirit in one of the top part of the lower levels. He's in an outpost. He's not really in heaven yet, but he's learning and he's doing so well. But the reason he's high because he's created his vibration, his harmony, and therefore he's more ethereal, and so he has kind of more energy than these people in this lower zone, in this dark abyss, I should say. But when he lost his temper, he became dense, just like them. And therefore they could attack him more, right? He became vulnerable. Now, as like a high spirit, like when people say they see angels, those angels don't really have wings. Well, some people can have wings if they want, because you look at as you want to look. But really, basically, is a higher spirit, it radiates, actually reflects the love of God. And therefore they're so bright, you can't see them, and it looks like they have wings because there's this brightness around. They're pretty fuzzy. If you were on the same level as that angel that you saw, they would look normal. You would both look normal together. But since they are at a higher plane, they do not. And if that angel came down where Franchezzo was, those people couldn't even touch him. Yeah, there was a story, Paul and Albert, where this woman angel came down to help these two men, and this one guy started lifting up this big stick that hit a woman, and she just grabbed his arm, and he couldn't move. He says, he's just like, how can you do this? Because she is at a higher level. There is no, she is this wonderful person, and he is this person that will be wonderful in the future, but right now he's learning the hard lessons. So but Franchezzo, he is not quite there yet, so he has to be a bit careful. And so he's right. Losing his temper, he lowered his vibrational and his harmony, made them on their level. So, and again, this is why we are in the process of going from a planet of atonement to a planet of regeneration, is for us all to raise our vibrational and our harmony. And as we raise our vibration and harmony, the whole earth will too. Okay, let me carry on. These two have been guilty of the most cruel and brutal murder of an old man, the husband of the woman, for the sake of his money, and they've been hanged for the crime, their mutual guilt forming a bond between them so strong that they've been drawn down together and were unable to separate, in spite of the bitter hatred they now felt for each other. Each felt the other to be the cause of their being in this place, and each felt the other more guilty than themselves. And it had been their eagerness each to betray the other which had helped to hang both. Now they seem simply to exist in order to fight together, and I can fancy no punishment more awful than theirs must have been, thus linked together in hate. In their present state of mind, it was not possible to help them in any way. Okay, so someone listening to me read this and are reading Franchezzo's account is like, why can't they wake up? They know they're in this purgatory. Can't they free themselves of this emotion? And the answer is amazingly not. They are locked in this loop of this hatred and betrayal. It becomes so important of this revenge. This is why Jesus told us to forgive 70 times 70. This is why it's so important. And these people are going to be together till, how many thousands of years? Who can know? Until they'll finally get tired of it. The spirit world will let them work this self out, although it could take a really long time. I've heard this before. I've been in mediums meeting, against the wall, not a medium, where these people who are locked together, this husband and wife, and the husband like branded the wife with an iron on her face. And he wasn't mean. He kept asking and begging for forgiveness. In the mediums meeting, he said, I know I'm wrong. But the woman just could not, she just hated him. But then she couldn't leave him. And he couldn't leave her because he wanted her forgiveness. So at least he had advanced a little bit. And he fully confessed that he was totally wrong in this, but she could not forgive him, which, one can understand. But at some point, let me go on this. And no one said that in the meeting to her. So maybe that's why I'm not a medium, because I would say, well, you got your face branded. What did you do in a previous life to have that happen to you? And then it's because you see this more in other spiritist writings and in mediums being video. People will hate someone for what they did something to them. But the thing they should look at is, okay, that person did something to me because of karma, because I did something in a previous life to that person. That's why anybody that does something to me, I get mad at first, and even now I kind of get a little upset, but I'm trying to get better. But I say, okay, what did I do to maybe not that person, but to someone else like that? Because this is what almost nothing's by chance, very little. So these things happen to us because we need the lesson. Now we have punishment. The spirit world does not punish, they educate. But sometimes we can look at the education as being pretty bad. Okay, we carry on. Shortly after leaving this interesting couple, we found ourselves at the foot of the great dark mountains. By the aid of a curious pale phosphorescent glow which hung in patches over them, we were able to explore them a little. There were no regular pathways, and the rocks were very steep, so we stumbled up the best we might. For I should explain, by taking on a certain portion of the conditions of this little sphere, I lost the power to rise at will and float, which was the privilege of those who had reached the land of dawn, which is the lower zone, the kind of higher parts of the lower zone. After a toilsome ascent of one of the lower ranges of the mountain, we began to tramp along the crest of one, faintly lighted by the strange gleaming patches of phosphorescent light, and beheld on either side of us vast deep chasms in the rocks, gloomy precipices, and awful-looking black pits. From some of these came wailing cries and moans, and occasionally prayers for help. I was much shocked to think that there were spirits down in such depth of misery, and felt quite at a loss of how to help them, when my companion, who had shown a most remarkable eagerness to second all my efforts to rescue people, suggested we make a rope from some of the great rank withered-looking weeds and grass that grew in small crevices of these otherwise barren rocks. And with such a rope I could lower him down, as he was more used to climbing in that fashion than I, and thus we might be able to draw up some of these spirits out of their dreadful position. So this pirate he rescued really is getting into, and you've seen this before, where once a person turns and they really find the joy and of helping others and the satisfaction it gives, they want to do more and more of it. So this guy is helping. He's going to rise pretty quickly. I'll carry on. This was a good idea. So we set to work and soon had a rope strong enough to bear the weight of my friend. For you should know that in spiritual as well as in material things, weight is a matter of comparison. And the materiality of those low spheres will give them a much greater solidity and weight than belongs to a spirit sphere more advanced. Just as I said, as you advance in the spheres, to go higher and higher in heaven, you are a higher ratio of energy to matter. Therefore, you weigh less, more ethereal. When you go way down into this lower zone, you are a higher ratio of matter to energy, or a lower ratio of energy to matter, however you want to say it. And here on Earth, of course, we are a much higher ratio of matter to energy. And that's why when people say they pass over, they go, "Oh, I was felt so good to free myself of this huge ponderous weight. Now I can just glide through." Right? You can do all these things. Okay. We'll give them much greater solidity and weight that belongs to a spirit sphere more advanced. And though to your material eyes of Earth-like, my pirate friend, would have shown neither distinct material form nor weight, yet a very small development of your spiritual faculties would have enabled you both to see and feel his presence, though a spirit the next degree higher would still remain invisible to you. Thus I am not in error, nor do I even say what is improbable, when I thus speak of my friend's weight, which for a rope made of spiritual grass and weeds was as great as the strain would have been the case with an earthly man and earthly materials. Having made one end of the rope fast to a rock, the spirit descended with the speed and sureness acquired by a long practice as a sailor. Once there, he soon made it fast round the body of the poor helpless one whom we found lying moaning at the bottom. Then I drew up the rope and the spirit when he had been made safe. I lowered it to my friend and drew him up. Having done what we could for the rescued one, we went on and helped a few more in like fashion. When we had pulled out as many as we could find, a most strange thing happened. The phosphorescent light died out and left us in utter darkness, while a mysterious voice floating, as it seemed in the air, said, "Go on now, your work here is done. Those whom you have rescued were caught in their own traps, and the pitfalls that they made for others had received themselves. Till that time, in repentance and a desire to atone, should draw rescuers to help them and free them from the prisons they had themselves made. In these mountains are many spirits imprisoned, who may not yet be helped out by any, for they would only be a danger to others were they free, and the ruin and evil they would shed around make their longer imprisonment a necessity. Yet there are prisons of their own creating, for these great mountains of misery are the outcome and product of men's earthly lives, and these precipices are but the spiritual counterparts of the precipices of despair over which they have in earthly life driven their unhappy victims." So this is the opposite of the golden rule. Things you've done what you have done unto others will be done unto you, maybe in the physical life or when you're in the lower zone. Carry on. Not till their hearts soften, not till they have learned to long for liberty, that they may do good instead of evil, will their prisons be opened, and they will be drawn forth from the living death in which their own frightful cruelties to others have entombed them. So this is being told by a superior spirit, like, okay, these people are here for a reason. You've done what you need to. That's time for you to go on. Okay, carry on. The voice ceased, and alone in the darkness we groped our way down the mountainside till we reached the level ground once more. Those awful, mysterious, dark valleys of eternal night, those towering mountains of selfishness and oppression, had struck such a chill to my heart that I was glad indeed to know there was no call of duty for me to linger longer there. Our wandering now brought us to an immense forest, whose weird, fantastic trees were like what one sees in some awful nightmare. The leafless branches seemed like living arms held out to grasp and hold the hapless wanderer. The long, snake-like roots stretched out like twisting ropes to trip him up. The trunks were bare and blackened as though scorched by the blasting breath of fire. From the bark, a thick, foul slime oozed, and like powerful wax held fast any hand that touched it. Great waving shrouds of some strange dark-haired plant clothed the branches like a pall and helped to enfold and bewilder any who tried to penetrate through this ghostly forest. Faint muffled cries of those who were exhausted and half smothered came from this awful wood, and here and there we could see imprisoned souls held captives in the embrace of these extraordinary prisons, struggling to get free, yet unable to move one single step. Now, this is like right out of a fantasy novel or a strange myth, from people who had visions in the past of, Hansel and Gretel and, those type of Grimm's fairy tales. And so, but this is true. This when people had visions of this hellish place. This is where they saw people were trapped in devices created by their own deeds, their own nefarious deeds. So now, he said, "How, I wondered, shall we help these?" Some were caught by the foot, a twisted root holding them as in a vice. Another's hand was glued to the trunk of a tree. Another was enveloped in a shroud of the black moss, while yet another's head and shoulders were held fast by a couple of branches which had closed upon them. Wild, ferocious-looking beasts prowled around them, and huge vultures flapped their wings overhead, yet seemed unable to touch any of the prisoners, though they came so near. Who are these men and women, I asked. They are those, was the reply. So all the time he's there, he's being watched by other spirits, and he's being talked to, him and his friend. They are those, was the reply, who viewed with delight the suffering of others, those who gave their fellow men to be torn in pieces by wild beasts, that they may enjoy the excitement of their sufferings. They are all those who, for no reason but in the lust of cruelty, have, in many different ways, in many different ages, tortured and trapped and killed those who were more helpless than themselves. And for now, all here, release will only come when they have learned the lesson of mercy and pity for others, and the desire to save someone else from suffering, even at the expense of suffering to themselves. So you can think, who's going to be there? Well, people like Stalin and Mao, the leaders of North Korea, Castro, Che Guevara, people who were cruel to others, enjoy people locked up, the people right now in charge in Venezuela. These people will not live a good life. These people who have lorded over others and enjoyed others seen tortured and left starving, their delight and the power that they have right now is so transitory compared to their mortal soul that they will not enjoy what's going to happen to them afterwards. Now, they'll all rise. All these people will eventually rise and become good people. But unfortunately, what they're doing right now is they're taking such a great detour and they're stalling their progress really horribly. So these people, you don't want to see these people. It's actually, when you become a spiritist, when you see a victim, you feel sorry for the victim, but you also know that, hey, that victim of something has now gone through a lesson they needed, and it kind of frees them up for the next. But you're really sorry for the perpetrator, for the criminal. Like, that person, man or woman, is not going to enjoy how they're going to have to pay in karma in their next life or when they go into the spirit world. Because they will, by law of affinity, they will go to a place where there'll be others just like them. Okay, I'll carry on. Then will these bands and fetters which hold them be loosed. Then they will be free to go forth and work out their atonement. Till then, no one else can help them. None can release them. Their release must be effected by themselves through their own more merciful desires and aspirations. If you will but recall the history of your earth, that think how men in all ages have enslaved, oppressed, and tortured their fellow men in every country of that globe, you will not wonder that this vast forest should be well peopled. It was deemed right that for your own instruction you should see this fearful place. But as none of those who you see and pity have so far changed their hearts that you can give them aid, you will now pass on to another region where you can do more good. Now, I have probably been in something like this forest because I have been told by mediums that I have had slaves and I was extremely mean to them. I've actually chopped their feet off so they cannot escape. So it's funny. The funny sad is I have been told a lot about myself by mediums and messages from spirits, but nothing ever good. It's always, my past has been selfish and prideful, and I've took money from people and used my power over people. And I guess is what the spirit world, what Jesus wants me to do is show, like, look, even though you've been this rotten character in the past, you can be at least a decent. I'm not saying I'm good. I've done a lot of stupid, bad things I'm not proud of in this life. But I don't think I'm a criminal, right? So I've improved. And maybe that's what I'm here for, is to show, like, hey, you don't have to be a you know what forever. The karma and reincarnation and life after life. So whoever is the worst person you think in the world, that person someday will be a good person because of how the spirit world arranges our trials and tribulations. And that's what is important, because I've had so many people tell me, well, unless I know what I did in the past, how can I improve? This is the important thing to latch onto. The spirit world is so smart. Jesus Christ is so smart. The legions that work for him are such geniuses that they will put you through trials and tribulations, and you will learn what you need to learn without knowing what you've done in the past. And that's why Spiritism really helps a lot, because in one of my books, the problem is the solution. When you have problems and trials and tribulations, understand, like, okay, someone just stole my car. And you were so mad at the person, you want to get revenge on that person, you hate that person. But now you got to think, okay, well, I must have stolen something else in my past life, and now my car was stolen from me. Don't hate that thief who stole your car. You can want to lock them up, but don't waste primitive emotions and say, oh, hey, that person needs to be locked up because they're going to steal other people's car. What you need to think is, okay, I had done something like that in my past life. I have stolen before. I will not steal again, because look, it made me feel terrible to have my car stolen with all my possessions inside my car. That's how it works. You don't need to know your past life. If you want to, that's fine. And some people have that power. Some people go through past life regressions. And if you do, really ask to be shown what you did wrong, and then ask to be shown what you need to improve, and really analyze what you've done. Use it, not, because first of all, don't use it to say, hey, I was a queen or a king or a duke or a duchess, right? And actually, those things you don't really want to be, because the more power you have, the more power you have to do bad things. The more you do bad things, the more you're going to have to go through really tough trials and tribulations. This one woman who was a queen, a Spanish queen, she had gone through many lives trying to pay for her wrongs, and finally said, no, I need to erase these wrongs. And she came back as just completely bedridden, in agony for a long life. Poor, God bless that woman. And so you don't want to pay in such these other lives. That's why the people who are rich and famous now, be as nice as you possibly can, because being rich or famous, those are the hardest trials. Spiritism tells us. You're saying, well, I'd like to try that. Well, that's the hardest trial, because if you're rich or famous, you have all these people come to you and let you do anything you want to them. And you are allowed to be a not nice person. And they'll still do whatever you want, because you have wealth. So therefore, don't let that affect you. Now, if you have wealth, it's nothing bad, right? I'm just saying, don't treat others bad because of it. Don't abuse it, and don't get your wealth. Don't get your wealth through cheating other people and taking advantage of other people, like I did in the past. That's why I'm not allowed to have any money now. I know that. Okay, where am I? Oh, yes. I'll start again. After leaving the forest of desolation, we'd not gone far upon our road, when to my joy I saw my friend Hassan approaching. Mindful, however, of Arinzaman's warning, I gave him the sign agreed upon and received the countersign in return. He had come, he said, with a message from my father, from my beloved, the woman who he loved. She's still in the physical plane, but he died like right soon after he met her, and just loved her to pieces. For my beloved who had sent me what were indeed sweet words of love and encouragement. A saint told me that my mission would now lie amongst those great masses of spirits, whose evil propensities were equaled only by their intellectual powers and their ingenuity in the works of evil. They are those, said he, who are rulers of men and kings of intellect in all branches, but who have been perverted and abused the powers with which they were endowed, till they had made them a curse and not a blessing. With most of them, you will have to guard yourself at all points against the allurements they will hold out to tempt you, and the treachery of every kind they will practice on yourself. Yet amongst them are a few whom you are sent to succor, and to whom your own instinct and events will point out as those to whom your words will be welcome and your aid valuable. I shall not in all probability bring you messages again, but some other may be sent to do so, and you must, above all things and before all things, Remember to distrust any who come to you and cannot give the sign and symbol I have given. You are now in reality about to invade the enemy's camp, and you'll find that your errand is known to them and resented. Whatever it might suit them to pretend, beware then of all their false promises, and when they seem most friendly, distrust them the most. That's wise words. That you can say that in our life here on earth with these people who are these politicians who are just power men and want to make laws, they say, for our good, but it's actually for their own good, for their own aggrandizement, for their own benefit. You can't trust any of these people. In fact, the Spirit is saying, you will understand why we have this sickness we've had. I don't want to use the words because of YouTube, because of their censorship. These poor people will learn their lesson too. God bless them all. You'll understand, I think, really, it's shown that these people who have wanted to grab power, these governors, let's take the United States as an example, these governors who have given power, the ones that used it the most are the most selfish and the most power hungry, and they don't care what happens to their people. While those who believe in individual liberty and love people and try to trust and honor people's individual rights, their states are doing the best. So be aware of this. And don't listen to anything you hear in the mainstream media. It's all lies, unfortunately. It's so sad. It didn't used to be this bad, and hopefully in the future it won't be, where we'll have, again, people that are actually trying to tell us news and the truth instead of just a point of view that they are trying to force upon us. Okay, we carry on. I promised to remember and heed his warning, and he added that it was necessary that I should part for a time from my faithful companion, the pirate, as he could not safely accompany me in those scenes to which my path would now lead. But he promised he would place him under the care of one who could and would help him to leave that dark country soon. After giving him a loving and helpful message to my beloved and my father, which he promised to deliver to them, we parted, and I set forth in the direction pointed out, greatly cheered and comforted by the good news and loving messages I had received. Okay, so next week will be chapter 22, Amusement in the Great City of Hell, Words of Caution. Let me put this back up. So I hope this had been interesting to people. And look, these books are so interesting. But you really want to know the backstory of the spirits that helped them, how they work, how you can get to that level. Start understanding Spiritism. Now, the Spirits book, which was codified by Allan Kardec in the 1850s, is a great place. But I think for a lot of people, and it's a series of 1,019 questions, I think for a lot of people, what you could do is I would suggest you read my short book, less than 100 pages, Spiritism 101, The Third Revelation. You go to my site, let me put this up here. Go to this, nwspiritism.com, and on the right-hand navigation bar, you'll see it. You can get it in PDF form, which is free, right? And you can buy it in Kindle or paperback or Audible if you would like. But I would, you don't have to pay a penny for it. It's in PDF. I also have it translated it in French. So I hope that would help you. In fact, let me show you my site. Let me hide this and let me show the screen. Let's show this right here. So here is my site, and you can see, and I have a new little thing here, every day. And then on the right hand side, you've got Allan Kardec. You click on Allan Kardec, it'll take you to the FEB bookstore where you can buy a lot of books. You can get all these Spiritist books and books by Chico Xavier on Amazon too, of course. And that's where I have my books now. But you can subscribe to my my YouTube channel, my Rumble channel. Please also subscribe to my Substack page where I have articles. I do about 3 times a week. And then here's the 3. And if you like this podcasts. I put all these on podcasts. And here's the free PDF books. I have Spiritism 101. I have it in French. I also have The Problem is the Solution in French. And if you want to contact me, hit the About Me and send me an email, and I'll send you my direct email, or we do WhatsApp numbers. Of course, then here's all the books I have on the side where I have them in Kindle, paperback, in Audible format. So I just want to make sure you had that. Yeah, oops, I'll go over here. So lastly, I just would like to say is to really understand the spirit realm. I would, the other thing, once you start reading some of Spiritism 101, I would do that first, and the Spirits book. And then if you're kind of encapsulated into a lot, I have other books dive down deeper in the subject, but this one kind of gives you the spirit realm, the physical realm, how you ascend, what you are as a spirit, how you go up in the levels of heaven. There are levels of heaven. You don't get, when you die, you're in the level of heaven that you probably were before, maybe a little higher, depending on what you learned on earth. But you are continually educated in heaven. You're never bored. There's always something to do. And then you go on great missions like Franchezzo has, right, to help other spirits. There's just so much to learn, to really understand why you're on earth, and to understand that this is like summer camp, right? We're here to learn things. We're here to expand our horizons, and most basically, we're here to better ourselves, to rip out the primitive emotions of hate, envy, revenge, jealousy, which is the same as envy, and to replace them with advanced emotions, love, charity, fraternity, and being honest. So I will leave you there. If you'd like, please subscribe, hit the like. That would be great. Let me comments. And I will see you on Sunday. I try to live stream every Sunday and Tuesday. And please ask me questions if you like. God bless everyone. God bless.